I can't see anything around me because no light can get down here, and it's freezing cold. To put it basically, I was losing consciousness 80 feet underwater. How's it going, everyone? Today, I'm going to be playing some Hoplite on Minecraft and telling the story of how I almost drowned 80 feet underwater at 12 years old. If you're a normal person, you understand that this is a crazy predicament to find yourself in. So you're probably wondering how I ended up there. Well, to tell this story, I need to give a little bit of background. But before I get too deep into the story, watch this. Oh no, please don't chase me, I'm defenseless. Oh no, and I fell into a cave? Get absolutely baited, bitch. To start the story of how I almost drowned, I need to go way back to where it all started. When I was 12, I went to this Boy Scout camp that was absolutely massive. There were thousands of people there, and there were a lot of events to attend to. One of the activities that you could try out was scuba diving within this little pool. And before I get comments like, "Oh my god, you almost drowned in a pool?" No, this is just the start of the story. In this pool, they hid little swim toys and golden coins on the bottom that we could look for as we were scuba diving. This was really just an introduction to scuba diving for all of these Boy Scouts. And it was a ton of fun. I remember having so much fun the first time that I went back to the pool and did it like 5 more times. And this wasn't something that you could just walk in the pool to do. There was a massive line for this. So I went through the line like 5 times just to have a go at scuba diving in this short little pool again. Needless to say, I was in love with scuba diving. And a few days later, when the camp eventually came to a close, I went home and told my dad this is something I want to be serious about. I did a little bit of research and figured out, yes, I can get a license for scuba diving at only 12 years old. I don't think my dad really understood how serious I was about getting scuba certified, but he did end up buying us 2 books. Because if I was going to get a license for scuba diving, he was also going to get a license for scuba diving. These books were massive, but I did not let that deter me. I read this book chapter to chapter, learning about things such as every hand signal that I need to know when underwater, all the way to medical conditions you can get from scuba diving, such as gas narcosis. You're gonna want to remember the name of that condition because that is what almost killed me. I can't stress enough how hard it was to read this book. Not only was there a ton of information to take in, but there was going to be in-person tests on each of these chapters, so you really had to study the material. And these aren't things that you can just memorize, these are things that you actually have to understand and apply. So I really had my work cut out for me. I remember many days of 7th grade where I was just sitting in homeroom reading this giant scuba book. I took notes on the side of the book and then reread all of those notes after I finished the chapter. I made practice tests for myself and eventually got the material down really good. After me and my dad both finished reading the book, we went to the scuba school to take the in-person tests. And of course, you would not be hearing this story if I did not destroy those tests. I passed with flying colors even though some adults in our class didn't even pass the tests. So now it's all done, right? I got my scuba license, everything's perfect. No. In order to get your license, you had to actually show that you were capable of scuba diving. And the only way to show that you know how to scuba dive is actually going scuba diving. Every aspiring diver who passed the previous tests was assigned to a scuba instructor. Then, this scuba instructor took us to a lake. This lake was pretty massive. There were many parts of it that only went down to 20 feet deep, but there were other parts of it that went down to like 100 feet deep. And it's also important to note that I encountered literally my worst fear at this lake. Something that I didn't even know I was afraid of is technology underwater. That might sound weird to you guys, but let me show you some pictures, and it's really terrifying. This fear is called submechanophobia, and I discovered it on this trip because they had put a bunch of machines under the water. They put these machines under the water so that the divers could swim around them and just kind of like explore. But I was terrified when I saw this underwater. Nonetheless, I toughed it out and we swam around the machines with my dive instructor. I remember there being a drill of sorts. There was a plane, there was a ship underwater. God, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. After a day or 2 of diving, we got scuba certified, but there was an option to go further. And as someone who just got very infatuated with this hobby, of course I'm gonna go further. So, me and my dad decided to stay a little bit longer to become advanced open water scuba certified. There's actually a big difference between an open water diver and an advanced open water diver. For one, an open water diver can only dive down to 60 feet, when an advanced open water diver can dive down to 100 feet. And I'm not one to settle for being basic. So, me and my dad agreed that we would stay and become advanced advanced open water scuba certified. Now basically what this meant for us is that we were going to stay at this lake longer and explore more machines underwater. And of course, to further advance our licenses, that means we have to go deeper. So deeper we went. And I have no idea why we were allowed to go deeper when I was 12 years old, because some seriously bad things could happen to you at this age with that amount of pressure on your body. So we dove around a little bit longer, completing a few more hours underwater until it was time for the dive that everyone was waiting for. This was by far going to be the deepest dive that any of us have ever done. So deep, in fact, that no light could even shine down there. You could expect near freezing water in zero visibility. So going down underwater, I could expect not only to freeze my ass off, but also not be able to see anything around me. Pausing the story for a second, what am I gonna get? A subscribe button? What? No, I'm just kidding, it was a fucking warden. But yeah, we do the little scuba dive off the boat and we prepare to descend into the water. My body wasn't fully prepared for how bad the temperature drop would be down there. And it was so noticeable at this one specific area. In the water, below 40 feet, you can instantly tell a temperature change. So as we're descending, my feet kind of just grace this area that's freezing, and the cold rushes up my entire body. I quickly kind of jolt up to get to the more blue water and signal to my dad, something's not right. This was like the coldest I have ever been in my life. The water was freezing. But nonetheless, we had to complete this dive to get our advanced open water scuba certification. So we kind of just pushed through after a minute of waiting there. We descended into the darkness and I was not prepared at all for what happened next. Going down, we had this rope to follow and it led us to a platform eventually. And thank God for the rope, because I was not able to see a foot in front of me, so I would have not been able to see where I was going. We got to the platform, so I looked at my depth tracker and we were at 80 feet deep. Then I realized something is totally wrong with me. I couldn't stand up on the platform properly because I just kept toppling over, and something was just generally so off with my balance and vision. My eyes got very droopy and I couldn't really think. I'm starting to lose my balance and fall off the platform a little bit, and I have no idea how much deeper this lake goes. If I fall off this platform, I could be going 20 feet deeper, or it could just be a 5-foot drop. Nonetheless, I don't want to fall down there because I might not be seen in these near zero visibility conditions. I can't see anything around me because no light can get down here, and it's freezing cold. To put it basically, I was losing consciousness 80 feet underwater. Some people around me, also scuba diving with us, start to notice and they give me hand signals, but I can't comprehend what signals they're doing because my mind is just so foggy. I'm basically falling asleep underwater. I don't remember most of the time being at this depth underwater, but I remember things getting shoved in my face and just feeling so overwhelmed but so unable to help myself. So again, I give the something's wrong hand signal and then we start to resurface a little bit. When you're scuba diving, you can't just go all the way to the surface, because if you go straight to the surface, your eardrums can blow out of your head. So when you are going back up from 80 feet down, you need to stop at 20 feet to let your body adjust to the new pressure again. Then after staying at 20 feet for a little bit, then you can resurface. So if I had passed out at 80 feet, which I felt like I was really close to doing, then there would have been not much hope for me. If I, at 12 years old, got dragged up by my dad from 80 feet all the way to the surface, unconscious, I would have died. The pressure change would have been way too much and way too quick. So the condition I got, as I said earlier, was gas narcosis, which is the equivalent of being drunk 80 feet underwater. That's why I felt like I was about to fall unconscious, and why I couldn't stand up straight and I was losing my balance. Everything was going wrong. I believe there's now stricter rules about what a 12-year-old diver can and can't do, because clearly a 12-year-old diver should have never been at 80 feet underwater. That is way too much pressure for not as much structural integrity as an adult.